Have you ever looked at a child's drawing? Those simple lines and bright colors usually depict a world of happiness and innocence. But what if I told you that one such drawing, with its stick figures and a crudely drawn house, held the confession to a brutal crime? A secret hidden in plain sight, a story that would unravel a family's darkest secret and expose a killer nobody saw coming. This is the chilling story of how a single piece of paper, drawn by a child, solved a murder. Our story begins in a quiet, seemingly idyllic town where everyone knew each other. Here lived the Jackson family, a young mother, Sarah, and her two small children, Lily and Tom. To outsiders, they were the picture-perfect family. Sarah was known for her warm smile and her dedication to her kids. She was a constant presence at school events and community gatherings, always with Lily and Tom by her side. Their life seemed ordinary, filled with laughter, bedtime stories, and the simple joys of a close-knit family. But behind the closed doors of their suburban home, a different story was unfolding, one that would end in tragedy. One Tuesday morning, the town's illusion of peace was shattered. Sarah failed to show up for her volunteer shift at the local library, a commitment she never missed. Concerned friends tried calling her, but there was no answer. When the police were finally called to perform a wellness check, they entered a home that was eerily quiet. There were no immediate signs of a struggle, but Sarah was nowhere to be found. Her car was still in the driveway, her purse on the kitchen counter. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Her children, Lily and Tom, were found safe at their grandmother's house, having been dropped off the previous evening. They were too young to understand what was happening, innocently asking when their mommy was coming home. The search for Sarah Jackson began, and a wave of fear washed over the small community. The initial investigation was a maze of dead ends. The police interviewed family, friends, and neighbors. Everyone described Sarah as a loving mother with no known enemies. Her estranged husband, Mark, was an immediate person of interest, as is common in such cases. They had been separated for about a year, and their divorce was described as amicable, at least on the surface. Mark had a solid alibi. He was on a business trip several states away and had flight records and hotel receipts to prove it. Detectives dug into Sarah's life, searching for any hidden conflicts or secret relationships, but came up empty. Days turned into weeks, and the hope of finding Sarah alive began to fade. The case was growing cold, and the community was left with a haunting question: what happened to Sarah Jackson? Just as investigators were starting to lose hope, a small, almost insignificant detail emerged from the background noise of the case. A child services counselor, assigned to help Lily and Tom cope with their mother's disappearance, noticed something peculiar about Lily's drawings. Lily, who was only 6 years old, had been drawing a lot since her mother vanished. Most were typical drawings for a child her age: flowers, sunshine, her family. But one drawing stood out. It was a picture of their house, but with some disturbing additions. There were 3 stick figures, one labeled Mommy, another Daddy, and a third, smaller one, which was presumably Lily herself. In the drawing, Mommy was lying on the floor inside the house. Daddy was standing over her, and his hands were colored red. A large, dark shape was drawn next to him, which Lily later explained was a shovel. The drawing was made on the back of a restaurant placemats, dated the night before Sarah disappeared. This single piece of paper, created with a child's crayons, would blow the case wide open. This discovery sent a shock wave through the investigation. Could a 6-year-old's drawing really be a witness statement? Psychologists were brought in to carefully assess the situation. They explained that children often process trauma and events they can't verbalize through art. The drawing was Lily's way of telling a story she didn't have the words for. The details were chillingly specific. The red hands, the shovel, her mother on the floor. It painted a grim picture of Sarah's final moments. Investigators now had a new, horrifying theory. Sarah hadn't just disappeared. She had been harmed, and her own daughter might have witnessed it. The community was horrified. The idea that a child could carry such a dark secret was almost too much to bear. The case was no longer just about a missing person. It was about protecting a child who had seen the unthinkable. With this new, disturbing evidence, the focus of the investigation shifted dramatically back to the estranged husband, Mark. His alibi had seemed ironclad. But the drawing prompted detectives to re-examine every detail of his story. They looked at his phone records again, this time with a fine-tooth comb. And that's when they found it, a slight discrepancy. While his phone's location data did place him at his business conference, there was an unaccounted-for window of several hours. He claimed he was sleeping in his hotel room, but there was no activity on his phone or hotel key card during that time. It was a long shot, but was it possible for him to leave the conference, commit the crime, and return without anyone noticing? The placemat from Lily's drawing provided another crucial clue. The restaurant logo was from a diner located halfway between Mark's conference and the family home. It was a place he would have passed if he had made a secret trip back. The pieces were starting to form a terrifying puzzle. Investigators decided to bring Mark in for another round of questioning. This time, they didn't lead with accusations. They simply asked him about his trip, his relationship with Sarah, and his children. He stuck to his story, calm and composed. Then, they presented him with the drawing. They placed the simple, crayon-drawn picture on the table in front of him. They didn't say a word, just watched his reaction. For a moment, his confident demeanor faltered. He stared at the stick figures, at the red hands, at the crudely drawn shovel. The color drained from his face. He tried to dismiss it as a child's fantasy, a product of a confused and scared little girl. But the investigators pressed on, pointing out the diner placemat, the gap in his timeline, the silent testimony of his own daughter's art. The pressure mounted. The walls of his carefully constructed alibi began to crumble. And then, he broke in a flood of confession. The truth finally came out. Mark admitted he had secretly driven back home at night. He and Sarah had argued, a bitter fight over their divorce and custody of the children. The argument escalated, and in a fit of rage, he had attacked her. He then took her from the home and buried her in a remote, wooded area he knew from his childhood. The children, who were supposed to be asleep, had woken up. Lily had seen parts of the horrific event unfold. Mark had tried to calm her down, taking her and her brother to their grandmother's and making up a story. He thought he had committed the perfect crime, that his alibi would protect him. He never imagined that the one witness he couldn't silence would be his own daughter, and that her testimony would come not in words, but in crayon. The resolution of the case brought a sense of closure, but it left deep scars on everyone involved. Mark was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Sarah's body was recovered, allowing her family to finally lay her to rest. The town, once a symbol of peace, was forced to confront the reality that darkness can exist anywhere, even in the most familiar places. But the most profound impact was on the children. Lily's drawing, the key that unlocked the truth, was also a heavy burden for a child to carry. She and her brother were placed in a safe, loving environment, receiving extensive therapy to help them heal from the trauma. The case became a landmark example in forensic psychology, highlighting the powerful, unconventional ways that truth can surface, especially through the eyes of a child. It's a haunting reminder that while some secrets are buried deep, the truth has a way of finding the light, sometimes in the most unexpected and innocent of forms. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe for more true crime investigations.